consultant, so consult. All objections in recruitment are actually beliefs. Let's just recap what is a belief. Well, a belief is a preconceived notion or conviction or idea held by your candidates or clients. Now, these beliefs are going to shape how they respond to job opportunities, interact with recruiters and decisions about career moves or hiring, and they will always present themselves as objections. For example, a candidate might believe that all tech jobs require long hours and no work-life balance, which could make them pretty hesitant about considering accepting positions in that sector, even if those opportunities offer substantial benefits. A client might hold the belief that smaller agencies aren't as effective as larger ones, which might lead them to resist engaging with smaller, maybe more specialized and even effective recruitment firms. Understanding beliefs is crucial for recruiters, as they directly influence all your communications and negotiations. A few examples here. So let's say, for instance, the candidate says to you, I'm not looking to change jobs right now, right? They might believe that the opportunities available do not offer better prospects than their current role. Now, a skilled recruiter can navigate this objection, highlighting how particular opportunities will specifically address their goals and offer benefits that their current job just does not offer, right? And on the flip side, a client might insist they have a preferred suppliers list. Now, the underlying belief might be that new recruitment partners pose a risk and an effort to onboard, and it's just not worth the benefit, right? Or as we like to say, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. They can't be bothered. If they onboarded every single recruitment company, they'd be there for days just onboarding suppliers, right? So you've got to be good enough to cut through the noise. In recruitment, a belief isn't just a thought, it's a filter, right? So objections and beliefs are interchangeable. They're a filter in which decisions are made. By understanding these beliefs, objections directly, you can be more effective in persuading and influencing and ultimately succeeding placing candidates with clients, right? So in this video series, I'm going to give you 9 different ways to crush every single client and candidate objection, and I will also show you how to stitch it all together. Let the games begin. Right, let's simplify how beliefs are structured and how understanding this structure can help you as a headhunter when you're facing objections. So there are 2 main ways people often think they can believe something, right? Which we can think about like puzzles. So the first one is a cause effect. So this is when someone believes that one thing directly causes another one, right? It's like saying, if it rains, the ground will get wet. In recruitment, a candidate might say, I don't want to work for a big company because it will mean I'll have no personal life. So they take the big company and no personal life, and those 2 things are together. So here, the candidate believes that working for a big company, the cause will lead to having no personal life, the effect, right? The second type of belief is what we call a complex equivalence. Now, this is when someone believes that one thing means another, even if there's not a direct cause. It's like saying, oh, if he's quiet, then he must be mad at me, right? In recruitment, you might say, they're asking too many questions, they must be inexperienced. Those 2 things aren't equal. But where a client believes that asking too many questions, the event, means that the recruiter is inexperienced, the conclusion. Now, most beliefs and objections come as an incomplete structure. When someone shares their beliefs during recruitment, right, they often don't give the full story, right? Or they don't complete the puzzle, like you get half of it. So, example, a candidate says, I'm not interested in switching jobs, right? But they haven't told you why. So it's like you've only got half of the puzzle, right? So the objection is half of the belief. So when somebody says, we've got a PSL, it's not the whole belief, it's just half, right? So there's 2 ways that you can get the full picture. Now, by asking why, this helps us complete the cause effect part of that puzzle, right? If you say why is that? They'll say, well, because, right? And they'll give you the cause. So because it would be too risky right now for me to move, or whatever it is, right? This shows their belief about the risk, the effect, and the job, which is the cause. By asking, what does that mean? It helps us understand the complex equivalence part of the puzzle. So if a client says, we have a preferred suppliers list, and you say, well, what does that mean for us? They may answer, well, we don't really consider new suppliers, right? Or they might answer, well, you need to speak to Jenny to get you on it, right? So the objection will present itself as, we've got a preferred suppliers list, but that's just half. That might mean they still would work with you, but there's a process, or it might mean that you can't get on it. Right, so understanding the initial objection, there's way more to it than actually just the initial objection, right? So we need to unpack that. There's two ways to do this. Why is that, and what does that mean? If you can think of it like a dominoes, right? So if you say, why is that? And they'll say, because, and you'll get the domino before. Or if they'll say, what does that mean? And they'll go, well, it means this, you'll get the domino after. These are the three events. These always travel together, right? If this, then that, which means this. This is a formal and a complete belief structure. But when you get an objection, you only get one part of it. So before you start to tackle these objections, unpack it. Why is that? What does that mean for us? Okay, and you will get the whole thing, and then you can then start to handle these objections. So let's go through them. So the next video is what we call the model of the world. Objection handling technique number 1, the model of the world. So model of the world is about recognizing and respecting that everybody sees the world differently based on their unique views and experience, beliefs and values. Right, so this diversity in perception is what we refer to as somebody's model of the world. So how this works in recruitment. Now, when you encounter objections from candidates or clients, these are often rooted in their specific models of the world. For instance, a candidate might object, I don't think working in a startup is stable enough. Now, this objection is based on their model of the world where startups are viewed as risky, right, and unstable compared to established companies. Or a client might say, we prefer to work with larger recruitment agencies because they're more reliable, right? So in that scenario, their model of the world emphasizes the size with reliability. Okay, so using the model of the world in conversations as a recruiter, when you can understand and acknowledge these models, you can better address their objections. Right, so here's how you can use this pattern. Number 1, acknowledge their model, right? So show them that you understand and respect their viewpoint. So you could say something like, I see where you're coming from. Stability is really important, right? It makes sense to worry about that in a startup. So you've empathized with their situation, right? Part 2 is expanding their model. So you could gently introduce new information that might expand or adjust the way that they see things. Right. So what's interesting is that many startups actually offer substantial equity packages and rapid career progression, right? Which usually is enough to offset those risks, right? Could that be something worth considering in terms of long-term stability? Number 3 is providing examples. So offer specific examples that challenge their model, right, without completely dismissing it. So for instance, I know a few people that joined this particular startup and found that the environment actually provided more job security because it was in a niche market where there were no other companies. So actually there was less competition. And due to their essential roles in the company, there was nobody else that could do what they did. So why this approach is effective is because it does not directly confront or challenge that person's model, but it respects their views whilst gently offering different perspectives that might shift their thinking. The model of the world, respect it and expand their model. Other people see things differently. The question you're trying to really ask is, how might other people see that same challenge? Objection handling technique number 2 is called the consequence pattern. This encourages your client to explore the outcomes or implications maintaining their current belief structure. Right, so what would happen if we assume that to be true? It's super effective when addressing objections that might prevent candidates or clients considering new opportunities, taking on new suppliers or so forth. An example here. So a client is hesitant about onboarding you as a new vendor. Maybe their concerns might be due to trust, consistency, quality, and all the above, right? So here's how you could apply it. There's 2 ways. It's the consequence of continuing their existing supplier relationships. So you could say, understand about your hesitation to bring on new recruiters, right? What would happen if we did, right? What's the worst thing that could happen? Or you could say things along the lines of, well, what is the consequence of continuing with your existing suppliers and if they didn't deliver, right? So it's like, what's the worst that can happen if we did, and what's the worst that could happen if we didn't? what I'm trying to do is expand their mind and tell them like, well, look, actually, if you're saying you're struggling to find this candidate, you've been looking for 90 days and you don't want to take on new suppliers, well, what happens if we continue to do this? It's that old saying from Einstein, madness is definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results, right? What's the worst that could happen here? So what is the consequence of continuing with their current arrangement? Or what's the consequence of if they did onboard us, what else could happen, right? We're trying to give them different outcomes, different scenarios. Number 2, what is the consequence? Technique number 3, the counter example. So the counter example aims to shift a belief by introducing examples that directly contradict it. So let's say a client insists they're not going to onboard any new recruiters because they believe they're not going to understand their industry well enough. When you introduce a counterexample, you could say, well, look, you could consider the case that company X had the same objection, right? They had the same thought, but they decided to take a new recruiter specializing in a niche market and found it actually gave them help to uncover new talent pools they hadn't actually tapped into before, right? And it actually led to some of their key hires. What you're doing is you're using real life examples to challenge the belief. You're showing them that the feared outcome that they have isn't always inevitable. By using counter examples, it's going to help expand the conversation way beyond their theoretical concerns, right? Provide them tangible evidence and make a case for them considering alternative actions. The classic in this is that people say, I don't use recruiters, and then you go, well, have you ever used recruiters? Or they'll say, we've got a PSL, so we can't. And you go, well, have you ever gone outside the PSL? So that's a classic example of considering a different outcome based on other things that show them that reality isn't actually true. Technique number 4, the redefine. So what is the redefine? Well, when you change the way you look at things, right, the things that you look at, they change. So when you redefine or reword the problem changes. So the redefine technique changes the meaning of the objection to show a different, more positive perspective. There are 3 steps to this. Number 1 is to understand what the objection actually is, right? Understand the exact concern. Number 2 is to identify in that concern what the issue actually is. And number 3 is to redefine it and actually give a more positive interpretation of that issue. For example, somebody says, we've got a PSL. Their original belief, so the PSL, what they're actually saying is we don't need other recruitment services. So by redefining we've got a PSL, really what you're saying is that you guys take your recruitment seriously, right? Which is awesome. So you're saying you do use recruiters. Now that's obviously a very good thing for us. Brilliant. So you do use recruiters. Another example here, another objection. Someone says, I don't know, I'm not looking to change jobs right now, right? So the original belief, so the objection is I'm not looking to change job. The belief is I need to stay in my current job. So we could redefine that as something else. It's great that you're happy in your current role, right? Now, staying informed about other roles means that you're not going to miss out when your dream job actually comes up and the timing is right for you. So let's keep talking. Maybe there's another objection where somebody says, we only hire through our internal team. So the original belief, or the limiting belief, is external recruiters are unnecessary. So we need to redefine that internal referrals are great and fantastic for finding trusted candidates, right? And you've obviously got that team for a reason. But maybe there are some instances where actually that strategy number 1 isn't your total strategy, right? And we can help you access a wider talent pool of top talent, ensuring you're going to find the best fit for specialized roles. So this works because when you redefine an objection, whilst you're respecting the original concern, you're going to give them a new angle, a different way of looking at the things. This will help them see the value in your perspective and hopefully make them more open-minded to considering different opportunities. Technique number 5, the reality strategy. So the reality strategy involves directly challenging our candidates and clients' assumptions, right? So here's how you can apply this approach straight away with recruitment related examples, right? So somebody could have the belief that being on a preferred suppliers list guarantees better candidates. The reality strategy would question, how specifically do you know that having a PSL would ensure better candidates? What evidence do you have to support that claim? Another belief could state that if a candidate says they're not looking for a new job, then they won't consider our opportunities. The reality strategy would question, well, how specifically do you know that that candidate's initial disinterest means they're completely closed off? What other factors could influence their decision to switch? Another example could be someone might hold the belief that a candidate from a top tier company is always a better hire. Now, the reality strategy would ask the question, how specifically do you know, or would you equate that candidate's previous company prestige with their potential success in this new role? What other factors could indicate a great fit here? Another example of a belief we could challenge here is a candidate who negotiates hard on salary doesn't care about the job and it's only about the money, right? So the reality strategy would question, well, how does them negotiation hard mean that it's a lack of commitment on their part, right? Perhaps they just see negotiation as a strong part of their job and they're trying to demonstrate to you how they would be in terms of if they actually got the position, right? So it could be a sign of self-value. By using these strategies, you can critically examine their assumptions and potentially lead to expanding the map of the world of the person that you're talking to. In short, we're calling their bullshit. The reality strategy, brilliant. How do you know? Technique number 6, the intention pattern or the intent. The intention pattern is an absolute weapon in your arsenal. It involves understanding and addressing the underlying intentions behind what someone says rather than just focusing on the surface content, right? So you're exploring the origins of the initial behavior or the belief or the objection. Some examples here, right? Somebody says to you, we have an internal recruiter. It's interesting. I'm guessing that they exist within your organization to reduce your agency spend, right? So it's about running a more profitable organization, right? So I'm questioning the intention behind that objection. So what if I could show you by actually spending money with us, you could actually save money and add to your bottom line, as I've got through case studies in XYZ. Let's say, for instance, a candidate is hesitant about changing job. So they might say, I'm not really sure about changing jobs right now. So the response with the intention pattern could be, well, sounds like you're really thinking it through, right? So I'm curious, what was it that actually caused you to take the call initially? Right? What was the original intention behind us talking? Let's say a client say something around like the team fit, right? They have concerns about a candidate's team fit. So you could say, so the original objection might be, I'm not sure this candidate will fit in with our team. Now, your response to that might be, well, sounds like you're focused on preserving your team dynamics, right? What specific qualities or dynamics are you looking to protect or get within your team? What's the intention behind them saying that? Like, why? What are they talking about? Make one other one for you here. So let's say, for instance, the candidate has concerns about the time of the commute, right? So they might say to you, look, the role sounds great, but I'm worried that about the long commute. So sounds to me like you're considering how this is actually going to affect your home life. Right, so even if that intention, my response isn't 100% in terms of what they're thinking, they'll correct me with the right answer, right? This is very similar to any of you that have seen Chris Voss's content around labeling. It's very similar to that, but question the original intent. Like, is what we're exploring here actually serving them based on their intent? It's a key thing. It's very subtle. It's one that I use a lot. Especially that one around, oh, we've got a PSL. Like, why do you have a PSL? What was the reason you have a PSL? Or we've got internal recruiters, right? I'm guessing to save money, right? These probing questions, you're trying to expand their logic and pull on a thread and go, right, okay, can we fit in here somewhere? The intent, absolute weapon, use it abundantly. Technique number 7 is the alternative outcome. So using this pattern, we shift attention away from whatever topic the other person's brought up onto something else entirely. So in effect, it's a bit like changing the subject. A good framework for this is the issue isn't this, it's actually that, and then to focus on that new thing, right? Let's go through some examples here. So let's say the candidate is concerned they don't have the right background because they don't have the industry experience, right? They might say something like, I'm worried I don't have enough experience in your industry. So the response to this is like, I get where you're coming from, but let's think about the skills that you have actually mastered and what could really shine here, right? What unique abilities do you possess from your past roles you think could actually make a difference in this new role? Let's say a client is pressing you for lower fees, right? They might say something like, look, your fees are higher than other agencies. Okay, so you could say, look, I understand your budgetary concerns, they're always at play, right? But let's also look at the bigger picture here. Like, what are the main outcomes that you're looking to achieve with this recruitment campaign, and how we can work together to ensure that you're getting the value that you deserve. Let's say another example could be the candidate is reluctant to join a business based on their company size, and they might say something like, look, I've actually normally worked in larger organizations, right? Not too sure about joining a smaller one. So you could say something like, look, switching to a smaller company can be a big step, right? But it can also make you stand out and you can move up the ladder quicker. What are your biggest career ambitions, right? And how might moving up in a more prominent role help you to reach those goals? Another example could be something like maybe a client is skeptical about hiring a candidate from certain educational backgrounds or lack of, right? Maybe they want a degree, or they don't want somebody to come from a certain university. So we've all had issues before with hires from non-traditional paths, right? It's good to learn from those past experiences, but it's also important to explore the skills and qualities that you need and how those candidates can actually sometimes bring fresh perspectives to your team. It's a very powerful pattern, right? The alternative outcome, because it provides you a way of elegantly moving away and changing the subject, kind of sidestepping the other person's whole argument completely. With this pattern, you say, in effect, that's not the real issue. You might be right about what you said, but we're not talking about that. The important thing is we focus on this whole other issue. Let's focus on that instead, right? So the alternative outcome, directing the conversation towards a narrative that is actually useful, not only to you, but sometimes to the prospect that you're talking to too. Hey, Dan here. Thanks for watching this course. If you are a recruiter or an owner of a recruitment business and you would like to see the second or the last part of this video, then head on over to Recwired Plus in the description below. You can book a demo of our team and we'll walk you through the platform and show you what it's all about. On the platform, we have over 200 live videos. We have 300 articles, tools, techniques, and templates for founders, from new into recruitment right through to founder level, with a special emphasis on senior and advanced recruiters. That's my speciality. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video, and I will see you on the platform. Cheers, guys.